Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today, oh boy, do we have some juicy drama for you. Also, as most of you know, I always like to take opportunities in any kind of drama-ish related videos where we can inform, we can educate, we can bring and spread hopefully some good awareness on just good practices as we kind of analyze the pros and cons. Now, what do we have for you today? Two things. We have a 3-alliance union that has now broken up because of one of these alliances accepting Nephisto and some friends. Now, the 3-alliance group is NOIR, LNV, and GD, which is what they once were. As you can see from the personal power, Nephisto is now in NOIR, previously was in BXS, was in TWB for a short period, and then eventually joined NOIR. And then we're also going to be showing you Nephisto's 100-day chat ban that occurred and what could have been some of the messages from some screenshots I was shared with that could have led to that. Again, we're only talking at face value for what happened. And, you know, again, I may give some personal thoughts here and there. For some of you that know, I did have the opportunity to do an interview with Nephisto, which I really liked and really appreciated and enjoyed doing for someone that didn't really know, or doesn't really know, I should say, anything really about his past outside, whether it be from Rock or other games that others have kind of mentioned to me. But I like to try and kind of take things for what they are at face value, even if I am hearing or reading through, older material. So with that in mind, let's start. We're going to show you first and foremost some of the feedback that we collected as we reached out to officers and leaders from alliances, multiple alliances, along with some other players as well that might be a little more disconnected, but probably new, but had some information to share. And then we're going to show you some of those screenshots as well. Now, before we do get into the showing of feedback, I want to say that what some have mentioned to me, there's kind of two sides on Nephisto and friends leaving BXS. One side is that Nephisto and friends were claiming, and I want to point out that I did reach out to Nephisto. It's been over 24 hours. I just hadn't heard anything back. I specifically reached out to him on Discord because, again, I think we're still friends on Discord, and hopefully we still will be after this, because, again, I like to try and cover things objectively. So for me, I reached out because, again, I wanted to extend that courtesy. I haven't heard anything back yet, and so I just want to put that disclaimer in there. So one side of it is that the BXS group just wasn't as active or as engaged at certain periods throughout the day for a number of days, potentially for what Nephisto was expecting or for how him and friends viewed it. The other side of it is that, well, Nephisto and friends left, and/or one person said that he was kicked. However, I have not got that confirmed. And they were stating that, look, it was just getting a little toxic. There was just some verbal language, some things that were happening internally, and it just ended up not being a good fit. With that in mind, I'm going to show you now what some of the feedback is that I have gotten thus far. We're going to read some of that out to you, with especially the first one we're going to read is a little bit longer and a little bit more personal of a story from someone that was previously into war and is no longer. And they did, of course, everyone that you see on here, gave me the okay to share their responses. Most of these people did give me the okay to share their name as well. I just have it blacked out for just default purposes because I have it that way, so I just totally forgot to undo it. Okay, but here we go for the first one. So this is from a NOIR player said, I joined NOIR in the beginning of Season 1 Plus. It was a well-organized, highly active fighting machine. It's been my home for 2 seasons, and I love each member in that alliance. We were allies with GD, and eventually LNV by the end of 1 Plus. We got matched with 33, and Nephisto's server. Nephisto's reputation precedes him, even from Rock. He is known to be toxic, throwing temper tantrums and destroys any alliance he's a part of. Essentially a homewrecker early in the season. NOIR leadership briefly mentioned bringing Nephisto to NOIR and our server 47. I had voted no, and I know that the GD, LNV, and NOIR coalition had all agreed to no. Apparently, and this is important, we'll touch on that in a bit. Apparently there were some backdoor deals that occurred, and I had logged in yesterday to see Nephisto and his group of players associated. So it kind of shows you, this is a number of days old, associated with him in NOIR. I messaged leadership thinking it had to be a joke. I do not mind the other 33 players who came to NOIR. They are stronger and respectable players, but I still voted no on Nephisto, and unfortunately, this was an all-or-nothing situation. I had supported and trusted NOIR leadership from day one. I always gave my opinion, did not always agree, but I always trusted and respected the leadership decisions. However, Nephisto was not one I could support or understand. Nephisto had badmouthed NOIR multiple times throughout the season, including our R5. He had made multiple derogatory and racist statements throughout the season that has earned him a few chat bans. We'll get to that in a moment. Despite all of this toxicity, he was still voted in by NOIR leadership. It's kind of like a situation where the girl thinks she can be the one to change her piece of shiitake mushroom boyfriend's mind. Not the case, Sonny. They allowed him in, though, not because they wanted Nephisto, but because they wanted the other T5s he came with, and they are willing to look past Nephisto's poor gaming strategy, or lack thereof, and toxic personality to obtain it. They even said they're willing to deal with the consequences of his actions, demonstrating that they know he is a liability. I gave the ultimatum that it was either Nephisto or me, and obviously my one T5 account cannot compete with the other with the 10 others that would come in my place. I had assumed since I was NOIR family for 2 seasons, family would trump power, but not the case. No pun intended for the Trump mention. I had left the alliance on territory with no hard feelings, just really sad and shielded, stupidly hoping that NOIR would see reason and logic and not be blinded by the power. This morning, my family turned their siege towers on and burned me off territory. Couldn't even give me the respect to move once my TB cooldown was done. This just shows that they did not care about our relationship or loyalty, just the power. The alliance between LNV, GD, and NOIR has also dissolved because of this decision, leaving NOIR without any allies at the moment. I still love my NOIR family and will not fight against them for the rest of the season. I understand they want recruitment to keep the server and alliance active and strong, but the price of Nephisto is not worth it when we could easily recruit in the next season. I wish them nothing but the best and hope that the entire CoD community is wrong about Nephisto and the disease he brings to any alliance he lands in. It breaks my heart that this is the path that NOIR leadership chooses to bring the alliance. NOIR deserves better. So I then asked as a follow-up question, right, where you see A1, that's answer 1 to the initial question I asked. And then Q2, answer 2, right? So question 2, did NOIR recognize the initial feedback from those that voted against letting Nephisto in, saying that they would honor that or any form of response on to how the voting went? Answer, my understanding is that the idea was presented by R5 and R4s, agreed to move forward with the plan to bring Nephisto and others in. I don't have any direct quote, but the feeling was that these newcomers are worth more than the alliance with GD and LNV. So basically the naysayers' opinion didn't matter. I believe someone has a screenshot of the NOIR 5 in the beginning of season agreeing to no Nephisto, and then this was a surprise turnaround that no one saw coming, was behind-the-scenes decision made by the NOIR leadership. So this is a lot to take in initially. I will say that, as always, when I am covering feedback, it's important to understand the objectivity of, right, this is one person's perspective and POV for how things played out. And usually we tend to go off of trends or consistencies, or if we have screenshots to show us otherwise, or to not double down, but to validate, if you will, and justify what are being said, right? That's usually where we kind of go more with it. Let's continue, however. So then we get to the next one here, which is, here we go. So someone else from NOIR. It's not as dramatic as people make it out to be. He came to us a few weeks ago. I want to say like 3-ish weeks ago to our R5 specifically. They wanted to join a strong. And these pieces of feedback were collected, I think, within the past week or in the past 4 days, maybe 3-4 days, I believe. So more recent than the first one. They wanted to join a strong and active alliance. We finally agreed after a while earlier this week. I'm not sure what that vote you're talking about, but the majority of us here in NOIR did not reject the offer. We have quite literally only one person left because they disagreed. There are plenty of people in other servers that dislike him from his rock past, and we are aware of that. Me personally, Neff and his crew hasn't been an issue. I like to judge players individually myself. I like their activity level and how much they like to fight. I like to fight on the field. There is plenty of time left until the season ends, so I can't say how much I will like or not like how it plays out. Another member of NOIR, no vote brother. Well, things happened fast. Our leadership chose to accept him, but we were right into the group of fighters in Nephisto's group. Then we get to GD. Someone from GD responded saying, "Hey, NASTi, glad to see you here. I still remember your videos about our fights with NT last season. Lol, for now, I want to say everything is undetermined yet, but it's a complicated story. Not every 47 family supports NOIR's decision, even some of their own members. In my view, NOIR and Satoru just want their alliance time to be the top, but many people here hates NAF and many things. Maybe the elite frame drama, maybe some trash words in world chat, or maybe something happened in Rock or something else. 47 was a union made by NOIR, GD, and LNV. All of them are strong alliances. Now, I'm not sure about the future of the 47 family. R5s are still discussing it. And then my question too was there an agreement between NOIR, GD, LNV to not accept Nephisto and or his friends into any of your alliances? Answer 2 is LNV, GD will not cooperate with NOIR next season. They accepted Neph and his team, which against 47 Council's wish, right? So this kind of doubles down on the first person that we heard from, right? Where you're seeing some consistency here of 2 answers being very similar and essentially kind of leading to the same end conclusion. But for now, we are neutral and won't attack each other. What boring days. Some people went to NOIR TWB to fight, but I think they will come back before the end of the season. LNV says, no thanks, I'm not interested in stroking Neff's overinflated ego, especially when most YouTubers treat him like he's royalty, not the scumbag he really is. Aggressive words. LNV, they want to be the best. NOIR and another member from NOIR went back on the unanimous agreement of the 3 alliances to have nothing to do with Nephisto and his pilots, and it's devolved from there. So now this is the third person from 2 different alliances that has, or from 3 different alliances that have told us, right, pretty much corroborated this idea that, or not the idea, but the statement of, hey, these 3 alliances agreed to not accept Nephisto and or any of these potential accounts and or additional friends. Then we get to the next one, right? From TWB. So far, he have no problem with us. He's mad at BXS because of activity and leadership issues, right? That was something that we briefly mentioned at the beginning. He said, by the other hand, BXS say he usually comes to fight when they are wasted, attacking like Rambo, and expect for everyone to follow him. Plus, he thinks everyone has 40 million troops to keep up with him, and that's impossible. His crew is an amazing bunch. Not 100% sure, but comments are he pay for all of them accounts. Which, again, I want to point out that even if that is true, this is something that is not all that uncommon, especially in Rock, and I would imagine for some groups that I have heard of and am aware of in CoD, where we've heard, for example, things such as, leaders or whales or just, again, people that have financial flexibility are able to either assist in buying bundles for people, maybe providing financial compensation if you're out there and you're doing really well in merits and you're participating in PvP, right? There's things that have been out there if you pay close enough attention. So this isn't really kind of out of the norm, but it might be surprising for those of you that have never heard about these things being done for the first time. Now we want, hang on, where did I leave off? Best Express. Here we go. So another person from TWB, Neff, was in BXS. He was fairly unhappy with 33 in general, and I can understand his reasons. He isn't the best to express how he feels, so we went into a fight with BXS. He didn't want to jump teams mid-war, I guess, so he came with his friends to stay in TWB, as he knew TWB was very active and very much filled with fighters. He spent the season fighting with us. He logs on as usual, does the killing, and he goes, and then goes off. We went for Behemoth and stuff together. He is very volatile indeed, but if you deal with him, honestly, he doesn't cause any issues. Then we came to this choke stalemate, and of course, NOIR took the dragon, and almost everyone agreed the war is over. 47 was fairly strong and balanced, but Neff went to NOIR with a deal to join them, and I am guessing take a lead dragon and frame with them. NOIR leaders agreed and let him in without consulting GD and LNV. So now this is the 4th person from 4 different alliances that has mentioned this unanimous agreement that was broken. Consulting, GD and LNV feels betrayed by the looks of it, and they are all mad with NOIR, and possibly they may separate. It's normal stuff, nothing very interesting in my opinion, which I guess depends on how you view it. Another person from TWB here, I believe Kiko already answered, but by the way, thank you for your videos and hard work. Excellent job. Appreciate you. Most thing I love about it's just natural. I don't feel that I'm watching something prepared video, just someone talking and enjoying his time. Oh, sorry. This was the feedback for me. I was reading this. I forgot. This was a comment I included that I guess was more of feedback for me. I didn't mean to put this in there so I can inflate myself or anything. I actually, now that I'm reading this, I thought the second part was where it says just natural. I thought it was just them referring to like the whole thing that happened. But now that I'm reading this is too kind. This is too kind. But I say that and everyone's going to probably just be like, oh yeah, he just included it. It's not my fault. I forget. With that in mind, but again, thank you for the loving words. So we have to, Tikimo will reach out to you and give you the full story. For the record, I'm glad Neff's gone. His crew is awesome, though. Love your content. Keep it up. Please. Appreciate you, fam. And then we got a few responses here from BXS. They've been great fighters, and I truly enjoyed playing with them. They're deciding to work with a new project and team for the next season. Any team with Nephisto will always find themselves outnumbered, and it will be tough to find allies. I've been a BXSR4 for 3 seasons. Don't need the anonymity. But again, as I mentioned, it's kind of defaultly. And I really want to give a shout out to this person, but again, because I'm keeping everything consistent with the anonymity, I love this response. And I'll just give you guys this from my boy. I'm just an intern. I love it. It is funny. And then someone that wasn't a part of any of those alliances had said Nephisto has a sizable group that he finances and travels with him. They wanted to join the war, and that caused issues with the coalition because of Nephisto's behavior with other people. So this kind of mentions briefly, right, the coalition there, not necessarily that anything was agreed to, but does obviously hint at it. Now, let's get to some of the screenshots in regards to the 100-day ban, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts and conclusive just view on everything here at the end. So let's start with the first one. And again, bear in mind, some of these are probably going to be PG-13, R-rated for some of the words, but again, we'll just kind of read them as you will, right? So it says, we're exporting perm to Italy in large quantities. DW, don't worry, we will face your genetics in the next 20 years. Just interesting. And then we get the next one here, which is T28R, can only attack because they can't fight, lol. If it wasn't for Italians, I would have 5 Ferraris in my garage. I don't get it. Okay, this is funny, but let's face it, Italian men have small, we'll just say wicks, and need Puerto Ricans to breed their women. I mean, this is... I don't know how... I don't know how you feel about whether it is... I'm sure some people will take this incredibly offensive. I'm sure some people will just say, look, that's just not right to say. And again, I'm sure some people will kind of find themselves either in the middle or just kind of on one extreme side or a light side. My view on things like this is that it's just always better to remain neutral in situations, especially in public settings, when it's very difficult to gauge the temperature where a room of hundreds of people are there, right? It's a lot easier to gauge the temperature if you're having a one-on-one with someone and you guys are kind of testing the waters back and forth just through having conversations where you kind of start off light and you're getting kind of a gauge for, well, where is this person's, I'm not using spectrum inappropriately, but where is their spectrum on humor, darkness, lightness, whatever it may be. It's easier to do that in a one-on-one than it is with hundreds of people reading a chat. Right. And then from here, we get to the third screenshot I was shared with me, which is someone had shared screenshots with CoD CS. Nobody does anything, offend an entire nation, and he can still talk in chat. You guys mute when he talks bad about our women's. And then CoD CS replied and said, thank you for your report. We have muted this account for 100 days. And again, I haven't been incredibly paying attention to the world chat, so I'm not sure if that's still active or not. Again, I just from scrolling up here, I didn't see anything that Nephisto had posted. I was scrolling up, I think, for a day or two. So unless I'm just blind and I didn't see anything, then maybe this is still in effect and it is legit and it's not just something. I'm sure others would probably be able to confirm that. However, now let me get to my conclusive thoughts on the situation. When we look at something previous that had happened in, I believe it was the S2-2 group there with BD, ANCS, MILF, etc., right, MF that were there from the Kingdom or the Merge KVK that Chisgle's in, right, where they were talking about the betrayal of, hey, we were allies, this thing happened, and then they left, right? Yeah, that is bad that those things happened and went down the way that they did. However, I'd like to believe there's a little bit more context there that factored into why those things happened, as we alluded to in the video that we made, which is not to take away from the fact that they still, basically broke off, right, the agreement. The way I view this, however, is a little bit more cut and dry. Like, this to me is more black and white than other situations that I have come across, because this is literally multiple people confirming, hey, we had an agreement, we didn't care about the agreement, right? We just basically said kind of F it, if you will, and broke it and just said, okay, hey, we're going to accept Neff and the group to come in, and then that broke everything off, right? So I think that is a little bit more telling. However, if there is more context to it, maybe the agreement was nullified. Maybe there's some screenshots or some other things that I haven't seen yet. I will say this. If there is anything that shows that, hey, there was a new agreement or a new vote that happened, or it was agreed upon besides leaders that, hey, this is actually okay, let me know. I'll link it. I'll do a little bit.ly and I'll put it in the pinned comment down below in the video. However, if you don't see anything there that it provides an update, then again, take this for what it is, which is that, look, there was an agreement, the agreement was broken, and now the coalition is no more. This, I just want to point out, is something that, for me, when I view these types of situations happening, it is unfortunate. I think for anyone that comes across a scenario where you find that, you are really a part of this group and you're a part of this kingdom that you hopefully feel you are, only for something like this to happen. I want to point out, before I maybe go a little deeper, is one solution to me is, why not just reach out to everyone and say, hey, Neff and his crew would like to get the Elite Dragon frame because of, obviously, we covered it before and we know that he missed out on it last season. Is it okay if they just join and then they'll leave after they get it? That's one solution. Second solution is, if Neff and his group really wanted to join NOIR, right, and maybe they wouldn't get Dragon, wait until the end of the season, right? If NOIR really cared about I shouldn't say it that way. If the coalition was important to every member between LNV, NOIR, and GD, why not uphold the coalition until the end of the season, like a day or 2 days before the season ends, right? Or maybe before migration opens, if you will. Even though I guess it doesn't really matter, right? I guess end of season is probably a better way to put it. And then Neff and friends can join NOIR, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing stopping that either. So I think those are two solutions that I find that are a little bit more viable when you think about what we're looking at and the scope of it and how things went down. Now, the other side of it is, again, like I said before, because I don't know a lot of Nephisto's history, kind of what went down in Rock, outside of hearing some rumblings here and there, right? I haven't done any of my own kind of due diligence, so I'm not really going to comment on that. I will only kind of comment on what I've seen and what I know as of now. The voice conversation I had with Nephisto, again, in that interview, I loved. I thought it was great. And I thought it was a great way to at least showcase a POV from Nephisto's side on him being able to showcase what he wanted to present, right? And what we talked about and what we touched on, which I very much enjoyed the conversation. What I often find is that when you are having a voice conversation with someone versus a text conversation, you could be on two completely different spheres with how you act, how you conduct yourself, what your tone is, the words you use, what your personality can be at times. Right? It's a little bit less accountable, right? You can almost argue there's less responsibility and less accountability when you're texting someone in a public chat, like a world chat / Belleron chat, versus being in a one-on-one voice call or even just a voice call with a few other people, right? It's just different. The atmosphere is different. And so to me, it almost felt as though when I did the interview, I was able to get the best out of Nephisto compared to if we just did a text interview as an example, right? Or we were texting back and forth and having a discussion or conversation. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, and I appreciated that aspect of it as well. When we see things like what Nephisto posts in game, and I want to point out, it's not just Nephisto, but other people post this kind of stuff as well. Obviously, Nephisto will probably get a little bit more of spotlight and a little bit more of lenses, if you will, put on because, one, he's the strongest player in the game. Two, a personality. Three, there's awareness about him as well, right? Coming from Rock and now in CoD. And so, right, I'd be remiss to think that a healthy amount of people in CoD do not know, right, who Nephisto is, whether it's from any of the kind of drama or situation videos around it, or if it's from, my top 25 videos of covering him as the number one player, the interview that I did with him. So that, I think, it is difficult, right? Again, as I mentioned before, my view is very simple. Just be neutral. Right, so the things that Nephisto is posting, right, I will say objectively I just don't agree with that, but to be fair, I don't agree with that for anyone that posts those types of things, because I just think it's easier to just step away or to excuse yourself from those situations. And it's one of the reasons why, for those of you that even wonder, I'll give you a great example. For those of you that see me, posting my promo messages if I have a video that I think that I'm putting out, right, with my scout accounts in Kingdoms, or even with my main. All right, you don't often see me type in World Chat, right? The only times you ever see me really type in world chat, where I'll have some conversations as if I'm recording some PvP and I'm talking with some people. If I'm going into kingdoms because I wanted to ask a question, maybe what some of the zone matchups are, which I always want to say thank you so much for those of you that take the time to respond and let me know what those final zone matchups are for the kingdom, because it really helps. If I'm going in to ask questions for people in game via direct messages that are helping me with some type of community crowdsourced video, or if it's trying to get information so I can, very similar like this, right? I can tell a little bit more of a complete or full story from multiple sides and angles. I love being able to do that. And I always appreciate when people take the time to reply back to me. But it is one of those slippery slopes where you just have to be careful, right? I mean, and again, I don't think Nephisto doesn't know that, right? It's like the age-old tale of, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? Or, treat others how others want to be treated. I think this is something that, almost everyone becomes susceptible to and is aware of. And at the end of the day, it just really comes down to choices. So, yeah, I think when you look at the betrayal, right, as a whole, this is a little bit more, as we mentioned, black and white, cut and dry, because it's more straightforward. And it is unfortunate that those things happened. And, what I will say is I always think there's solutions, right? I'm always a fan of, there's got to be another way to address this, another way to approach it, as I mentioned, with those two options around maybe how NOIR could have done it. Maybe if they went in and had some voice conversations with GD and LNV and just kind of figured out what to do, because at that point we had heard that GD or NOIR had already captured or was planning to capture the dragon. So I don't know how that decision figured out on why NOIR opted, or why NOIR was able to take the dragon compared to GD or TWB. Maybe it was because they were just stronger amongst the three. Maybe they just already had players that were funneling in there and they were just the strongest at the time, so they decided, hey, let's just use this shell to go ahead and try for dragon. And then they tried to get other players from other alliances in there. Whatever it may have been, it's hard for me to not believe that there was literally zero opportunities to have a discussion, to have a conversation, to figure out, hey, how can we make this work where it wouldn't impact the union. However, I will say, as an asterisk, if literally all forms of due diligence and efforts were applied to try and figure it out between the coalition, right, and it just ended up coming down to, NOIR, whether you want to call it selfish or not, because they wanted, or they would have liked those players to join, and or i.e. wanted the players to join, right, then that's kind of the situation that they were in, where it's like, we want them to join, we don't necessarily want to leave the coalition, but, if that's what it comes down to, then, then that's what it is. Again, all choices are going to have consequences, and there may be repercussions to those choices, right? So, again, hopefully, if anything, you enjoyed this video walking you through some of the drama, some of the takes, some of the feedback, and then my thoughts on what I think about the whole situation, a few of the parts, and then some solutions and some possible ways to address and or approach these types of situations if they may arise in your case in the future. And again, for anyone that wants to provide additional context, if maybe you think there's another solution that could have played out, let us know in the comments down below. That, as always, is going to do it for me. Until next time. I was going to mention too as well, because I know sometimes these videos can attract a little bit more viewers. So I always like to say, if you have any type of drama or war updates, you can join the Discord, which there will be a link in the pinned comment description down below, and we have a dedicated channel on our Call of Dragons section, which I think is called COD War Drama, and you can always post, or you can even DM me if you like. And if I think the story is something that I'm interested in covering, and I feel like maybe can have some educational and awareness aspects to it, then it's probably something I'll be interested in. Finally, that's it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch y'all later.